Peace and blessings, family. This is your brother, asarimhotep, with the Martin Delaney Center for Egyptology, and this is the Mbongi. And we have with us today a very, very special guest, a longtime friend who is from the H, as we say, but is currently living in Rwanda. And so we're going to see how she made the jump from H Town, Third Ward, and in other areas all the way to East Africa. But more importantly, we're going to talk about online education, her institutes, and the importance of STEM in this development. So, all that and more when we return in just a moment. And we are back. I want to thank each and every one of you all for joining this conversation. And I just want to say, if you are new to this channel, make sure that you hit the subscribe button so that you get all the notifications for when we have important guests, such as our guests today, and any other of our lives and the like. And so make sure that you subscribe, and then, take that little mouse of yours and make sure that you click the like button so that, we get up there in the algorithm so more people can know about the subjects in which we talk about, as well as the guests that we promote here. So, as y'all may have known, been busy and been working on a few projects. And so, as you know, we're getting near finished with this particular text, titled it Paths to Ma'at, Essays in Honor of Dr. Muba Bingay Bilolo. This is going to be an edited text. I have a few chapters in the book, but many of the chapters are translations that I did of many of Dr. Bilolo's articles into English from French or either German. I'm still working on this German chapter, this German text. As German is not one of my languages, I have to use some alternative means. And so got to get some things verified with some native speakers and the like. And so this hopefully will be out and done by the end of the year. So I will keep you all posted. And hopefully shortly after that, maybe a couple of months or so, we'll also have this text ready, an introductory guide to Kimoyo, a reconceptualization of African spirituality. And so I found it necessary to create a guide for people trying to understand, in my personal opinion, a more accurate conceptualization of African spirituality, using indigenous concepts to convey those thoughts and practices. And of course, using historical comparative linguistics to reinforce the arguments. So with that said, I'm going to introduce our guest today, Sister Nikala Asante, who is a versatile educator. She's an author and human rights activist and is renowned for her commitment to the enrichment of K through 12 students in the Pan-African diaspora. As the founder of the Whole Living Academy and STEAM All Year, she has combined a decade and a half of experience in education and homeschooling with her rich academic background to shape dynamic online learning platforms. Graduating with honors from the University of Houston Honors College and backed by a Benjamin A. Gilman International Scholarship, Asante earned her BA in English, minoring in African American Studies and French, then proceeded to attain her Master's in Education in Curriculum Development and Instructional Technology. Her unique student-centered pedagogy is informed by her academic pursuits and her belief in the power of culturally grounded education. She is also an author and has penned 17 books spanning genres from fiction to social justice, including Redefining Self, Tomorrow Will Be Better, Character Building for African-Centered Scholars, Arts and Crafts for African-Centered Scholars, Getting High, Mental, Physical, and Spiritual Ascension for Melanated Teens, and 50 Africans You Must Know, Volume 2, which she co-authored with Dr. Samori Kamara, if I'm saying that correctly. So this is a very dynamic woman. I'm glad that I share the same atmosphere and breathe the same air that she breathes, and very good person. And I am honored to introduce her to y'all, my Mbongi family. So please welcome Sister Nikala Asante. Peace and blessings. Peace and blessings.
That's an introduction. I want to introduce you after that. This brother has written 125 books. 115 of them are yet to be released.
Basically. I keep revising stuff and they'll be like, no, it ain't ready yet. But
yes.
But welcome to the Mbongi. Welcome to the Mbongi.
Well, thank you. I'm very honored to be here. I saw that recently you featured Dr. Robin Walker and a good friend of mine, Dr. Obari Cartman, as well. So I know that you've had so many great interviews thus far. And I'm honored to be a part of that, long line of interviews. I hope that mine can, come up to par with the rest.
Indeed. Well, for those of y'all that don't know, we met at the University of Houston, where she got her undergraduate degree, and so she is currently in East Africa right now. And just to get a little bit of background of yourself, just tell us a little bit about yourself, where you grew up, and why did you decide on Rwanda versus anywhere else for the current moment in terms of living?
Yes, absolutely. And, for context, I am absolutely in Rwanda, which is known here as Rwanda. So let me know if at any point my internet is not as great as it could be, but we're going to hang in there and see how it works out. So why did I choose that and where am I from? I'm from more of the Metro Houston area than Houston itself. I was born in a freedman's town, Tamina, Texas, about 40 minutes to an hour outside of Houston. I lived in Houston from maybe like 10th grade, forward, but I was a part of the Shape Community Center in Third Ward from a very young age, from about maybe 8 or 9 years old, because Brother Deloitte Parker, the founder or one of the founders of the Shape Community Center, actually came to Tamina and with one of my cousins founded a branch of the community center, kind of a parallel, spinoff of it, at a park that was founded by one of my aunts. So I was exposed to the Nguzo Saba very early, not fully knowing what it meant at that time, but we were saying the Nguzo Saba every single day because that's what Brother the Lloyd had instilled, into my older cousins. So we didn't really know what Kujichagulia was, but of course, words carry power. So I'm sure that just saying those words had a certain effect on us, and we used to play around with it. We were like, Kujichagulia, Kool-Aid and chocolate, but the effect was there, right? So a lot of the words that Brother Deloitte shared with me when I was a child really stuck with me when I was navigating Southwest Houston, as a teenager and all of the peer pressures and challenges that came along with that. I would say that things that he shared with me really stuck in my mind. So I had it in mind that I wanted to actually come back and volunteer and participate with the Shape Center. I ended up moving to Atlanta as a teenager, when I was around 19 years old. And when I returned from Atlanta and moved back to Houston in my early 20s, one of the first things that I did was I went to the Shape Center and, I asked about becoming a volunteer. And I'm still a volunteer, even now, even from Rhonda. I'm still, an integral part of the Shape Community Center team. So those African-centered values were instilled in me on some level very early. And then, of course, cultivated deeper throughout my 20s. And I would say that the Shape Center was a big part of me, deciding at a young age that I wanted to be able to, travel to Africa myself, specifically Ghana, which led to my decision to attend the University of Houston over TSU. Because at the time, the University of Houston had a study abroad to Ghana. I've always been an academic from a very young age. So I knew that if it only took me getting good grades to be able to get a scholarship to go to Ghana, I was like, okay, this is my ticket right here. So I'm going to choose this school. Literally, I chose the University of Houston just to be able to travel to Ghana for free because I didn't have the money to be able to do it. And I ended up actually getting funded to go twice, once as a student and then again, after undergrad as a teacher to go back and lead the study abroad to Ghana with Dr. John Childs. So with my background, I became involved in Black studies in my early 20s. I became a creator of African-centered curriculum in my early 20s. And at that time, I felt like I was kind of, a late bloomer in some ways because I felt like there were certain things that, I wished I had, started at a younger age. But in hindsight, just kind of understanding the scope of, how we end up falling into Black studies and getting into Dr. Amos Wilson and Dr. Asa Hilliard and so on. For many, it happens much later. So in hindsight, I recognize that, I wasn't a late bloomer, but of course, however old you are, it's never too late to find knowledge of self, right? So I'm very grateful for the journey thus far. After traveling to Ghana, yes, my next trip was with the Gilman Scholarship to get funded to go to France to study French. I would say you were part of that to some extent because you were one of my friends at the time that was studying French as well. And so with your work, I don't know if it was with Dr. Bilolo, there were some other scholars that you were studying back then that were writing in French. Do you remember who that was?
It's not a single scholar, but
There
that's
was
one
one
of
that
the
was
reasons.
a teacher
It's
that you were
either
studying.
Cheikh Anta Diop, it's either Theophilo Benga, Dr. Bilolo, it could be Oscar Pafuma, it could be Pierre Omindiji.
No, it was
Oscar,
one that you were like writing back and forth with,
it was
and
that
he
was
was showing you.
probably Bilolo at that time.
Yes, and he
It
came
was
and
probably
spoke at
Bilolo.
the University of Houston in the Black
Mhm.
Studies, program as
Yeah.
well. So you, along with some of my other African-centered friends, were deep into the studies of French, during that time, and I already spoke Spanish, so I decided to, go with that as well. To go with French for my foreign language for my undergraduate degree, and after that, I ended up getting invited to start doing human rights related trips. As a writer, I was invited to, I wouldn't call it a mission trip, but more of an activism trip the same year that I went to France, which was almost 15 years ago at this point, to document what was happening inside of sweatshops, what was happening on slavery plantations in Dominican Republic, and see if we could bring attention and awareness back to the United States to be able to curb some of these injustices. And we were successful with the sweatshops. We were able to get higher pay and better safety standards, but we were not successful in stopping the slavery plantations. So I just want to mention to people that there are batallas in Dominican Republic where Haitians are enslaved to this day. And I remember meeting a woman who was kidnapped in 1940 when she was 7 years old, who had been enslaved on that plantation ever since, right? And, she spoke Spanish. She had no knowledge of, Haitian Creole, of course, because she had been separated from it for so long. And they had been in slavery for so long that they really could not even conceive of anything else because they had been told, for so many years that it would be so dangerous for them to leave. So I just want to mention that, of course, to people. There's a documentary that you can watch called The Price of Sugar on YouTube, to be able to learn more about that. I'm also a practitioner of holistic health. This year, I will actually be a board certified naturopathic doctor, which has been a really long journey. I was also a certified practitioner of holistic health, way back then. So because of that, I ended up getting invited by the University of Houston Honors College to take the necessary pre-med courses to begin getting involved with the medical service trips to Haiti, IET. And as a result of that, after I took the necessary coursework, delayed my graduation from undergrad, to get involved in that work, I ended up getting invited to start leading the medical service trips, to IET as well. So that's been a big part of my journey that I would say then segued into me being invited to Belize to do a project with the Garifuna women, to encourage economic empowerment and fight against gentrification in the area of Same Bite, which was like almost a 2-month project. But afterwards, I decided to just stay in Belize. And my son was with me for a lot of this, but I was homeschooling him. I was homeschooling other children in the community. I was creating curriculum for African-centered schools in the US and abroad. So it was like a lot happening at once, really. I was teaching at the University of Houston. Once I entered my master's program, I was teaching classes at UH like pretty much right away, like within maybe a month of, graduating from undergrad, which was not, normal. But of course, I was kind of on a different course, so it made sense, for me to do that anyway. I mean, it was effective, even if it wasn't a typical path. So with us moving to Belize and having really good results with students that I was working with, even, virtually that were still, back in the US, that continued to grow to the point where it was too big for me to navigate it on my own. So that led to me continuing to create curriculum, build out a team and a program with Mama Swatara Olushila, Baba Sintwali Olushila, to start Whole Living Academy as a Pan-African online homeschool. And we have continued to expand over the past 7 years. After Belize, we moved back to Houston for the birth of my daughter, who is now 4 years old. And that is really what led me to Rhonda, because I wanted to have the right community and environment for her that still had the vibe of Bailey's, in terms of like low cost of living, fresh food, the hills, the mountains, the great climate, but also a stronger African American community like Third Ward in Houston. And I definitely found that being here in Rhonda, there are a ton of African American people that are here. Many of them I knew already. So we came here and we created a community center. We created the Ujima Whole Living Community Center, which you can find at ujimacenter.com. And it's kind of a spinoff of the Shape Center. Once again, full circle, back to childhood. Another spinoff with Kujichagulia, Kool-Aid and chocolate, right? So, and
I'm
also,
definitely going to have to get because especially because he's aging, get Brother Deloitte Parker on the program because people
yes,
need to know and see what a successful, because he's been there for a hot minute. The Shape Center has been a staple in Third Ward for a hot minute. Uh, what a successful community centered institution looks like, and even
right.
how we can expand on the ideas and what he's been able to do over the years. But
Yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but continue.
No, no, please interrupt
Okay.
always. So,
Uh,
just for the record, for those,
right.
Chakalia does mean self determination. Okay. It does not mean Kool-Aid and chocolate, not to be confused. Okay. And Brother Deloitte Parker has done an excellent job creating a model for a community center in Houston. I have been involved very deeply with the Shape Center for a long time. So thankfully, I've been able to take a lot of those principles along with Sotara Olushila, who has really been a visionary behind Uzima Center here in Rwanda. And we have the Elders Lunch. We have a homeschoolers hub for the youth. We have fitness classes, yoga classes, a wealth building circle, farmers market, and so many other great things that are happening at the community center, a consignment shop where people can come and sell their items and get, empowered financially, through the center. So definitely, Brother Deloitte Parker has created a great model for us to continue to build upon. Another big aspect of my time here that I definitely want to get into talking about with you today has been starting a tech company, Asante Global Solutions. And starting a tech company in the US is a 6 to 7 figure endeavor, unfortunately, unless you're just doing it by yourself. But if you're actually going to, have an office and a staff and whatnot, then you're going to have, a little pot, a lot of money, right? But here, that's not the case. So, of course, that's something that I would also, encourage to other people in the community. I've actually prepared a presentation to share as a part of our time together today to continue our conversation from recently about tech development. And the title of that is African Centered Tech Development in the Age of AI, to start that conversation about how we can all engage with technology in ways that can empower our global diaspora.
Before we go there, what are some ethnic groups that um, what are some ethnic groups that people have mistaken you for so far in Rwanda? What
Okay,
group did they say that you belong to?
where do they pin me?
Yeah.
So if someone sees me in the morning, then they say Waramutse. If they see me in the afternoon, they say Miriwe. If they see me at night, they say Muramuke because they think that I'm Rondon. Everybody here thinks that I'm from here if I don't open my mouth. Yes.
That's important to know because without necessarily getting into that topic,
Mhm.
there's a group of us in the United States that believe that African Americans don't look like Africans, and with this whole FBA movement and pretendian movement, but that's a another subject for another time. So um, before we get into the tech company and development and the like, and we asked the question, are you creating an African centered Skynet in Africa? Before I ask that question, um, what, because this is a, because tech is me. I've always been tech coding, the mathematics and all that since forever, right? But to come from English, French, African American studies and the like to tech and STEM, what what catapulted that leap? What was the inspiration, and what was the inspiration that convinced you that what, we need more of us teaching this, because of possibly what's to come and the like what was that process, and how did that lead to the tech company?
I wouldn't say it was linear, and so often to be African centered is to be non-linear, right? So I started coding when I was like maybe 6 years old, and I was an OM child as well, Odyssey of the Mind. So I was doing robotics probably by the time I was, I don't know, maybe 8 or 9, maybe a little bit younger. So I've been in tech for pretty much my whole life, you know. Even at the University of Houston, I was the leader of the Summer of Apps program, one of the leaders of the Summer of Apps program, which is where we built apps for nonprofit organizations in the city of Houston. For example, during that time, well, almost 15 years ago at this point, we built a volunteer management app for the Shape Community Center, right? And the budget came from the University of Houston to do that. So I've been, building websites and doing graphic design, really heavily since I was a teenager. So tech is not anything that's new for me. It's just that I didn't decide to get a degree in it, you know, because like yourself, we're generally skilled or talented in so many areas, so many of us, as people of African descent, that we can't go and pursue, a degree through their system for everything that we know how to do and know how to do well, right? Because it would cost like $50 million. So, so yes,
You
it
have to be
wasn't
rich
something
rich
that.
to get a degree in every interest that I'm interested in, but I'm sorry, go ahead.
Right, right, exactly. So I mean, I paint, I'm a painter. I was, just like working on some painting here, before I got on the call, just kind of haven't finished this yet, but this was something that I started, before I got on the call, right? This is like a little, charcoal sketch that I did while I was eating out, the other day here, right? I'm an author, I'm a musician, I play instruments, I rap, right? So I think that within the European tradition, they'll call that being like a Renaissance man or a Renaissance woman. But who is the original Renaissance man, right? You carry his name. Imhotep is, the oldest known, what would be known within the European context as a Renaissance man. And so I like to think of it as being Imhotepian, not to say to be like Brother Asar, but to be like the original Imhotep, which comes
But
back to also being like Brother Asar, right? Like us being able
most
to
people
tap
don't know
in.
that that's how I got the name. So
I
that's
believe
my
it.
line. That's my line name from when I pledged Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated at the University of Houston. And so
Yeah.
because of all of the things that I was into and was good at, that's why they was like, we're going to name you Imhotep. And so
Yeah.
that's how I got the name. I added a SAR later on, but Imhotep is my line name from when I pledged at the University of Houston. But I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yes, yes, yes. And so many of us, have so many skills and talents that we carry, but we're told, okay, well, you need to focus on, one of those because you're not going to be effective or you're not going to make money if you try to focus on more than one. So some people may say, well, when did you get into health and medicine? When did you get into that? When I was about 9 years old, you know, when my mother was studying nursing, I read all of her textbooks, for her complete degree and then helped her to study so that she would be able to have someone, to assist her with like navigating that whole journey. Right. And that was when I started studying allopathic medicine. So all of these things that I'm tapping into at this time in a way where I'm able to bring forward, it's more so because I have a larger team. It's not that you can't do all of the things that you have skills and talents in, it's that you can't do them by yourself, right? But if you can be the visionary behind something and you can explain it well and you can train others, then you can develop a team and you can bring forth more of yourself through having others also assisting with those ideas. When I started the tech company here in Rwanda, originally my vision for it was very different. I was thinking about making it super basic, like just focusing it on like making websites and apps, for businesses in Kigali and Bujisera district. And the goal of it was not for me to make those things, but the young ladies at the time that were working with me to train them to have that source of income that could be so much greater than what they had access to normally otherwise. So when I got into the process of actually training them and we had created over 100 demo sites to share for the portfolio, and it was like, okay, this is great. And I went to Africa Week at Norskin, which is a tech hub in Kigali with about 1,500 members, most of which are Rwandan. And going to Africa Week at Norskin was such a profound experience because you had these tech founders that, came from all over the continent, even from all over the world, but mostly from other African countries to come and share their stuff. Like, oh, I built my own blockchain. Like on ETH, no. I created a new one. It's like, what? You're 22? What did you do? I did this big thing. I did that big thing. And everybody had these big ideas that they were bringing forward, and they were seeking some type of support or some type of funding for, because they couldn't continue to build, or if they already built it, they couldn't really go to market without somebody saying, yes, I like your thing. Here's $100,000. Do it. And if they didn't have that, then, it could kind of put them at a standstill in terms of, what they were able to carry forward. Now, at that time, I had been building solutions just for fun. Like, oh, you know what? We need a maternity health app, that can help the rates here, in Rwanda, and it can translate into English, French, and Kinyarwanda. Let me make that. Oh, you know what? You know what you need for your farm? You need a farm planner. Let me create a farm planner. So I was creating these different apps. Now, I do know how to code, and I also know how to do graphic design. So that helps when I'm using AI, because it doesn't have that like same look, or not being able to extend to the back end, or not being able to be a full system. Because if you have the knowledge of, what came before the AI, which is more focused on front end, then you're able to use the AI as a tool or a stepping stone to help you with furthering your ideas faster, rather than depending on it to bring your idea into the world, totally on its own, right? So I was creating things, not thinking about making any profit from them, not thinking about, including them as a part of the business. And after I attended Africa Week, I realized this is what Asante Global Solutions is supposed to be about. The solutions that you're able to build, Nikala, like have your team do that instead of going out and building a website for a coffee shop that, anybody can build. Have them build the things that no one else is building, because you don't have to have $100,000 or $300,000 budget to do that. And with the cost, the salaries, that would be normal, or even that would be great for software developers here, is still a very low cost in US dollars. So for me, being someone who, is somewhat stable, but not balling out of control, I was able to build a team here and start accelerating what was inside of me to come into, these full-fledged, technologies, and be able to start the process, of even going to market without receiving any funding from anyone. So that's something that I would encourage for others as well. If you are someone in tech, consider, just getting you a little remote job, or having a business where you can have some money coming in, and come and build a team on the continent, so that you can take your ideas and bring them fully into fruition. And if you are on that side of things, or even if you have like an idea to kind of get on that side of things, even if you may not have the same background as myself or Brother Asar, that's okay. That's okay. What you have to bring into the world is still important, even if you have no tech experience whatsoever. And I think that you'll gain something from our talk today to be able to push you further in that direction.
Well, without further ado, if you want to share your screen to do the presentation, I will give you the floor.
Okay. Let me click the share screen button here.
And while she's doing that, I'm going to need each and one of you to That is right. Make sure that you hit the like button. And if you are just joining our conversation, we are here with Sister Nikala Asante, joining us live from, she says, how you pronounce it? I say Rwanda still. So she
Yes,
says,
it's okay to say Rwanda. It's kind of like saying Mexico versus Mexico,
Gotcha.
right? So we say Rwanda, but in Kenya, Rwanda, people say Rwanda.
Rhonda. Okay.
Yes, yes. So I am in Niamata, Rwanda, which is
Mhm.
about 30 minutes outside of Kigali.
All right. Do you want to do
Okay, so
this? Do you want to do this full screen, or you want to be seen in the corner? Actually,
I'm okay. However, it looks best for you all. You let me know.
if there's
And
something I think needs to be highlighted more, I'll just temporarily put it big screen and then go back once it's
okay.
all right. So I'm a mute my mic, and you got the floor.
Okay, and I want you to feel free to jump in, Brother Sar, anytime that you have a comment, a question, because of course, this is meant to be a conversation, and there may even be things that you're able to add to what I'm sharing from your experience in technology as well. Okay.
No doubt.
So I'm so honored to be here today with Brother Imhotep. And as I mentioned, I want to talk a little bit about African centered tech development in this age of AI, right? So Brother Asar is I wouldn't say a professor of linguistics, but definitely a master of it. This is something that, I know that you've studied Brother Asar for at least 20 years, at least 2 decades, at this point. And the
Sounds
same
about right.
rigor sounds about right, right? And the same rigor that's used to reconstruct ancient African language families can be pointed at building what our communities need right now. We build entire scientific and linguistic systems from observing nature and observing self. And that carries into this new era of building with AI. We're returning to a method that, of course, was always ours. First of all, to be harmonious and observant. We built mathematics, astronomy, engineering. I think that everyone watching this channel knows that already. Harmony with nature was a huge part of that. Biomimicry was a huge part of that, studying nature and then learning from nature to actually innovate, create inventions. For example, if you see where he is weaving the kente cloth here, the part of the kente loom that weaves the threads together is actually based on the spindle of the spider. So there were people, African people in Ghana, that looked closely at the spider long ago, and they were able to see how the spider was, putting together, its own little threads. And then from that, innovate the kente loom, right? So the same way we can study and we can use these new tools such as artificial intelligence to be able to assist us with innovating as well, right? When we look at the termite mounds historically, they informed being able to build structures in Mali that were naturally cooled. Also, in the groups in Kenya and in Nigeria, like the Maasai and the Yoruba people, they were also able to look at nature and then be able to bring that, into innovations that they were creating. And then, of course, in Kemet, ancient Egypt, we observed nature and produced calendars, geometry and engineering that built lasting civilizations. And my pictures are not showing up here. So let me see if I can just kind of take a moment. and load up the pictures as well. Let's see if we can pause for just a second. Is it okay to pause for just a second, Brother Asar?
That's no problem. While she's getting that together, I just want to make a quick advertisement, and that is going to be for and I believe we are back.
Wow. Yes,
Um,
I that looks like an amazing book, by the way. I just want to mention that.
and
Yes,
it is
so
Ubuntu One Zombie. Okay, there it is. Let me bring it back on stage. All right, go ahead.
okay, wonderful. Thank you so much, Brother Asar. So yes, historically, um, we were the AI. It was African innovation, African intelligence instead of artificial intelligence, right? But we can call on this thought process, this critical thinking process, as we're using AI today, right? So, what are we solving with AI? To solve anything, to look at anything and say, okay, I have a solution, first you have to say, here's the problem. What is the problem? What is the gap, right? Technology and biomedical research, for example, have spent most of their history solving for white male bodies, white male faces, white male problems. These are the bodies that pharmaceuticals have been tested on, faces, cameras have been trained to see, problems that have been funded. So we can see some of the data here. In 1977, the FDA policy explicitly excluded women of childbearing potential from early phase drug trials. About 80% of drugs pulled from the market between 97 and 2001 for unacceptable health risk turned out to be more harmful to women than to men. In 1993, we see not until the NIH Revitalization Act were women and, quote unquote minorities required by US law to be included in federal funded research, which is, pretty recent. I think all of us were born that are watching this by 1993. The lesson is that exclusionary trial design produces exclusionary medicine. The harm done is structural. Then, when we look at AI and computer vision, I'm sure you've heard about the cameras, even being labeled as racist in the way that, they're profiling people. Some of the, computer vision tools that they're beginning to use now, because these cameras were trained to see white male faces. There were some studies that were done on this, and they're 10 to 100 times more likely to misidentify Black and East Asian faces. Now, Brother Sar, I'm going to pull you in for just a second here. Now, based on
Okay.
what you know about the criminal justice or the criminal injustice system in the prison industrial complex, what do you think could be the harmful consequences, if any, of these cameras misidentifying Black faces?
And it would, I would argue that it's, like a firearm. We call it a firearm because the weapon is an extension of the arm. It's almost like the arm and the weapon are one. So that's why we call them arms, right? Whether it's a sword or a pistol or whatnot. And so I look at this as an extension of, for a lack of a better term, the hypothesis of white supremacy, right? And they already have a mindset, because people don't understand, we haven't reached so-called artificial intelligence yet in the strictest sense, but the um, the technology is always going to be an extension of its makers. So if the people themselves are of racists, or think that all black people look alike and stuff to this nature, they're going to create tools and instruments to further that hypothesis. And outside of the facial recognition, you also got to be cognizant of um, the algorithm racism that comes as a result of artificial intelligence. Because, like, for example, they can decide what wage to give you after examining patterns in your credit report, right? And lowball you. So because they know that you're going to be desperate, if you are under a particular certain score, then they'll lowball you in terms of what kind of pay that they'll do you. This is kind of what they do also with like Uber and stuff like this. So when you have, in addition with the cameras, that don't know how to tell black people apart, but also you have these algorithms and statistics that they'll fudge and say that black people are more likely to commit certain crimes. Then they'll combine that with the facial recognition, and then come to the conclusion that you're more likely to be the culprit than someone else based upon their pattern recognition data. And that's a dangerous
Yes.
thing.
Yes, it's a very dangerous thing. And I feel like there are so many forms of racism that we don't talk about enough, right? Like just now, you're talking about scientific racism, right? Like when you're saying, okay, Black people are more likely to commit certain crimes according to those studies that are faulty studies, and I'm sure have been proven to be faulty studies. Then you have studies like the bell curve that comment on our intelligence that are also faulty studies, right? Those studies fall into the realm of scientific racism. Of course, we have architectural racism, going into how our communities are being built. Why do we see the liquor store and, the convenience store that has some beer and some hot chips, but, doesn't have fresh fruit. And you see the Paycheck Advance, loan institution next to that with the very exploitative interest rates, embedded into it. All of these are aspects of, architectural racism, of course, built into urban design, right? So now we're getting into the age of algorithmic racism, as you mentioned. And, as you said, the tool is an extension of the maker. So, of course, we have to also be making our own tools that can be an extension of us. And we do have, that decentralized access to begin to do that. So this study that we see here, Faces in the Wild, this was a training set that the field of computer vision leaned on for years. And it was, almost 84% white, right? Of course, we see that commercial classifiers were at a 0% error for light-skinned men and up to around 35% for darker-skinned women. So all of these can be issues, just like, we can be misidentified while we're walking down the street, and they can say, oh, I thought you were someone else. But when that misidentification is extended to a computer doing the misidentifying, then, at a certain point, it can actually be that people are being wrongly incarcerated because of the AI. So the work is for us to build these tools, train them, and own them ourselves on our own timeline for our own people. Now, what is the framework that we can think of as we're doing this? Brother Asar, I'm assuming you've read Dr. Amos Wilson's Blueprint for Black Power.
Several times. It is my personal Black Bible.
Okay, all 900 something pages of it.
Already.
So our survival in this century depends on organized, self-controlled power built across parallel domains. Dr. Wilson called for a Pan-African bloc carrying its own intelligence gathering, financial institutions, and information infrastructure. Power built on our own terms inside institutions that we answer to. So when we're thinking about these disparities, we can conceptualize them as domains of power held outside of our communities and read these new tools as ways to begin to take our power back. When we're thinking about the domain of economic and land power, we see that median Black household wealth is only around $44,000 compared to nearly $285,000, of median white household income in 2022. The dollar gap is wider now than it was in 1992. The median Black worker wealth in terms of what they're earning is about 24% less to the median white worker, even with the same qualifications or the same job, with unemployment consistently higher. Dr. Wilson pointed to what we already have and underused: investment clubs, credit unions, isusus, tontines, partnering, all African originated collective finance tools. So I want to talk about some of what we have built embedded into this conversation. Okay. And I'm not going to go too deep into it, but I just want people to see real examples of, what we can create in this age of AI to be able to start to take some of this power back. Okay. So when we're talking about land power, this is not something that, I share often, but in this past, I guess, 2 or 3 years, I have purchased almost 50 properties, right? Most of them are a 1/4 acre to a 1/2 acre lots. These are all in the United States. The land that, we farm on here on the continent was more so gifted to me. Like we have 4,200 organic moringa trees in Ghana, but that's in partnership with Dr. Akua, the founder of A Life of Peace, who I've been studying with for almost 2 decades. We have, a farm here in Rwanda, and that was something that was gifted to me as a result, with, my work with the community here and with children here. Someone actually, saw some things that I wanted to do and decided, to gift me a farm. But in terms of actual land ownership, I have been buying and selling land in the US. Now, we use technology in every step of that. We use technology as part of the research process. My son has even built, some scripts in Python that assist us with, scraping certain sites and, reading through thousands of different potential opportunities, choosing the ones that are most fitting, according to what I'm looking for. And then, I'm able to continue the research from there to
Quick
be
question.
able to, yes.
And have y'all gotten to the stage where y'all are using drones to survey the land?
Yes,
Because,
yes,
all
we
right, go ahead.
have. So this is actually a drone shot that I had taken. Yes, so we have gotten to the point of using drones, and you can see that my land buying and selling company is very black. It is unapologetically black, like everything that I do. And people will say like, oh, if you're going to do this, then you need to, hide your identity, or you need to try to pretend, that you're white and male or something like that. But you really don't have to do that. Like if the audience that you're cultivating is not really, that audience, if you're really trying to empower our people, then you do not have to hide the fact that you're black, or the fact that you're doing something that is, Afrocentric, right? So, this is a testament of that. Of course, you see that the prices are very low because we spend ample time doing research to be able to find, great opportunities, and then, find the opportunities that are so great that we're still able to give the end buyer a great opportunity. And that's part of, I've been also reading Dr. Amos Wilson for a very long time, and, have worked on integrating those lessons into my life, into my way of being, into my process of, building businesses, right? Another extension of that is Green Growth Africa. This is a plant research application that I built, I think, earlier this year or last year, that, was also entered into a competition here on the continent, Brain Forest Venture Program. And, what I do here is I document African plant species. I also built in a computer vision plant identifier, and document medicinal plants, as well as, how to create food forest and other restorative, agriculture, approaches, or, permaculture approaches, right? So each of these plants, when you click into them, you can see, the basic information about it, but you can also see the medicinal uses of the plants, also organized by culture, because of course, within specific African cultures, you have different medicinal uses and spiritual uses of plants. And you can see the PubMed research, cultivation, business and economics, the compounds, industrial uses, environmental, and so on. And as an educator, of course, anything that I do is going to connect back to education. So we also built in interactive simulations for medicinal plant extraction, herbal medicine formulation, wild crafting, ethnobotany, water purification with moringa seeds, and all kinds of cool stuff. And we actually use this as a part of our curriculum at Whole Living Academy. All of this information is currently available completely for free. So, if you tap into it, use it for your family, for your children, you are actually able to use, everything here on Green Growth Africa at this time totally for free. And these are the types of things that we're creating using AI, and I'll talk later about some of the tools that people can use, because of course you can't just put in a prompt and build a plant research database. You have to connect it to validated sources. And to do that, you have to understand terms like API, right?
I was
How
just
to
gonna say that.
connect. Right. I was just going to say, brother, sorry, do you want to? I'll give you the floor for that one. But let's just say for 60 seconds, because I still have a lot to cover, would you like to tell people what an API is?
Essentially, it is an interface that allows for third-party software developers to use resources on, well, nowadays they say, like a cloud service. Um, and so you get access to not only the databases, but the operating system, um, and other resources on a particular computer. So it just really just depends, but it's kind of like, but it's basically a bridge, between your software and another computer's uh, resources, and the resources could be physical resources, or it could be informational, like in terms of a database. But that's what they allow for you. Um, how should I say? So you don't also try to code anything that will disrupt the the flow and the integrity of the servers in which the software is available itself. So you create an API that acts as a middleman. So we use it in terms of uh, EFI thinking. Like your API would be someone like SU, who is the go-between between you and the Orishas. So this is what communicates with all the Orishas. You'll have direct access, but you create an SU to be that bridge, and you do whatever is necessary to connect and communicate with SU. SU will in turn communicate with the Orishas for you and bring back all of the blessings, or curses if you need it. Saying from the cosmic operating system and database store, if that makes sense.
Yes, thank you so much for that, great description, spiritual description of an API. What's your zip code, Brother Star? They're in Philly. Uh-oh, can you hear me?
You can use 19135.
19135.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
my
As we go
address
into
in
this
North
next,
Philly.
okay, wonderful. So as we go into this next portion, political and informational power. So Dr. Wilson argued we have to have our own intelligence gathering capacity and produce our own account of our own conditions. He saw strategic value in us controlling our information networks inside corporations, governments, and schools. Today, that question is concrete. Who owns the data or the data about your block? Air quality, water quality, policing, lending, zoning. So with one of my recent 12th grade graduates, we actually received a grant from the National Council of Black Studies, in collaboration with INBOV, the Freedom Project, to launch Understand Your Area, which is, connected to the Perplexity API. And it puts environmental data in community hands in language that people can act on. So if we look at this zip 19135, we can see that the water quality is really not great. The air quality and the land history is pretty okay though. We can see the comparisons here to the national average. The sources are here as well. You all can use this site for yourself completely for free, understandyourarea.com. And I'll tell you more about it here in just a second. You can see regulated facilities near you for hazardous waste. There are quite a lot in bringing down the water quality. So when you look up, and Brother Sar, I'm assuming you've probably looked up the water reports in your area before, right?
No, because I don't drink the water, regardless.
But you
Well, I
shower.
mean, you still had a shower, yeah.
It goes through your skin.
Hopefully the soap neutralizes whatever.
You would hope so, right? You probably also, boil the water from the tap when you're cooking rice and things of that nature. Or millet, whatever grains that you're using. Unfortunately, boiling the water does not get rid of forever chemicals that are inside of it, like the PFAS, PFOS, PFOA. All of these affect the liver, affect the kidneys, and those are not boiled out. Unfortunately. Of course, if you have any lead in the water, that's also not going to be boiled out. Now, some people would say, well, I don't want to know what's in the water because what am I going to do about it anyway? Of course, you can do something. If you look at the water filters that are available to you, and I'm going to scroll up to the top here to show you, what we can see is that the reverse osmosis water filter actually removes most of what would be, considered to be bad in the water. And, if that's combined with, carbon, or combined with, distillation or UV, then you're going to clear everything, with that filter. So you'll be able to see here on the site that what we recommend is that if you do have these issues coming up with your city water, that you install an under the sink filter, because then you're at least treating the water that you're going to put directly into your body. Of course, with many of these things, you're actually concentrating them when you're boiling the water instead of eliminating them, right? Brother Asar, if you're aware that these substances are in your water, and you could go and you could spend $100 or $200 to be able to get a filter to go under the sink and prolong your life, would it be worth it for you to do that?
Of course.
Right. And so for most people, they just don't know. And of course, outside of not knowing, they may feel that they don't have any power over it. But you do have power. And by having this research accessible to you in plain language, it puts the power back into your hands. Also letting what's going on in your area. Brother Asar is probably like, let me go back and look at this again later because I didn't even know about all this.
I mean, outside of showers, I even still, even the food that I cook with, it's still bottled. You know how you had the big 5-gallon waters. Like I still
Right.
cook with that water. So it's only with the showers and stuff that I use the city water per se. But even still, like in my mind, I'm always wondering like what is the science behind the filtration, and can we create our own? In like because we were in Houston at a time where Hurricane Katrina happened, and a lot of folks from Louisiana, New Orleans, came to Houston as quote unquote refugees. And when you're hearing the stories of what was going on, you were wondering, like, what if we had the knowledge, of water filtration and hunting. So this is more basic. I wouldn't necessarily
Yeah,
say,
of course. Yeah, of
but
course, we can create our own water filters. You can use SODIS,
yeah,
SODIS, which is using the sun to eliminate, many contaminants from the water. There's actually a mineral that's, I think it's called like zeolite, that you can get from pool supply stores that can be used to remove radioactive waste from the
mhm,
water. So, absolutely, as you're getting into this thought process, you can use this same thought process to begin to create your own water filters. And, brother, sorry, you mentioned that you're buying the 5-gallon jugs of water for your own home. Of course, you know that many people in
Um, I don't know if you're still spoken or if that's my connection, but it seems like you went out. Um, Let me know if you can hear me or type something in the private chat. Hopefully, you are still with us. If not, you may have to come back, uh, go out and come back um, in terms of your connection. Uh, so, at least on my end, I'm not hearing you, and your screen has frozen. So, hopefully, she will come back into the fold and finish her presentation. Otherwise, I'm gonna do my own presentation on how we can use nuclear waste to become superheroes like the Avengers. So if you survive the gamma radiation from our experiment, we promise great things in your life. You may grow to be super big and green, but that's another factor. So it looks like our sister is back. Let me bring it to the
Yes.
screen. Uh, Sorry for that. Yeah, so I forgot what the last thing that at least I heard before uh,
Yes.
you went.
Before it cut out. No
Yeah.
problem. Yes, I was just mentioning that this app was actually built in collaboration with one of my 17-year-old students that graduated recently. She ended up receiving a scholarship to attend North Carolina A&T, and her focus is going to be forensics. And this was a great springboard for her to be able to receive scholarship funding for college. But it's also something that is beneficial for the community. So these are ideas that people can, consider when they're thinking about taking an African centered approach to technology. How can you pull research or, data about things that are going on in your area or in our diaspora and make them beneficial to the community? Another domain is consciousness. Liberation begins in the mind. Falsified consciousness is a problem, and it's installed through distorted history and Eurocentric schooling. Dr. Wilson held that intelligence is inseparable from goals defined by your own people and for your own people. Now, we have built many innovations that are within that realm of education, one of which we're actually expanding to the next level right now. We released the first free globally available K through 12 Pan-African downloadable curriculum back in October of last year, Pan-African Global Open Curriculum, which you can find over 2,000 days of curriculum for free at panafricancurriculum.com. And you can just go in there, you can get all your curriculum from K through 12, over 6,000 pages of curriculum, completely accessible and downloadable, along with worksheets to accompany each week of curriculum so that you actually have homework to use for your children, or if you have, a homeschool or a micro school, then of course, you can use that for your students. Right now, we're expanding that into building an interactive portal where the students can log in and they can do their lessons. Back in the day, I would use, like Time for Learning or Khan Academy, with my son to give him that type of interactive experience. And I was also involved in the building of Kamali Academy's online, curriculum, somewhere around, I don't know, 11 or 12 years ago at this point. I built an interactive platform, Steam All Year, 7 years ago. And this is way more comprehensive than anything that I've, ever built before. It's cost I don't even know, like somewhere close to $20,000, to build it so far. And that's a fraction of what it would have cost before the development of AI. I mean, this would have been, a project that would run at least a $500,000 to be able to create curriculum at this scale that is actually interactive. It would have cost so much money and required, such a huge team. And that is one of the reasons that, we get locked out of this type of thing, is because we don't have the capital, right? But of course, with having some capital and, having a team, we've been able to build millions of dollars in technology without having to have millions of dollars. So, please visit panafricancurriculum.com and access that, and of course, get on the wait list for Scholarverse as well, which, is going to be 75% off for the first 12 months to give more people access to it during the beta launch period, which is coming up here in the next, 3 to 4 weeks. We built the Carver School, which is also focused on plant research. And that is completely inspired by Dr. George Washington Carver. We build blackhistorygames.com, which is a collection of games. And all of those games are African centered, social games, 360, immersive game. That's a self guided journey through Black liberation, Pan Africanism, servant leadership, healing, and long term movement building. We build African centered trivia game, African centered chess game that assist you in mastering chess and Pan African history at the same time. Financial literacy and entrepreneurship game that goes across the African diaspora. So many cool things. We've had a lot of people tap in with that so far. You can access everything for free still at this time. We do encourage, donations, but you even have a game here that I built that, teaches students how to, create a tech startup from the beginning, to the end. So many great things. Let me know if you're still able to hear me,
I can hear
Brother
you.
Asar.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay,
You're good.
wonderful. Internet is still locked in. So this is, also along the lines of, what you can build within that realm of African-centered education. Now, Brother, so I think you know this about me, that I speak multiple languages, right?
My bad. I'm still on mute. Yes.
Yes. So I'm a language lover. And one problem that I found when we're teaching languages to students is that the materials that we're using are teaching the students how to be tourists. This is how you order fish. This is how you find the train station, introducing yourself. You're learning how to be a tourist, but you're not learning how to read the works of, Dr. Sheikh Anta Diop, as you mentioned earlier, right? So
Mhm.
I actually built an app for that, funny enough. And
Mhm.
it has over 211 lessons, across multiple world languages, because of course the Black world has always been multilingual. And our target with this is really to install it into African centered schools first, and then, into other schools, later, so that we're able to teach language itself from an African centered perspective. And so if we just, jump into any one of these, lessons here, then what we can see is that we have a guide, and we can even switch to a different guide showing here on a screen. And this has audio built into it, which I'm not going to click into right now just for time's sake, but you all can, go and sample the lessons here at liberationlanguage.com. And, apps like Duolingo are great, to prepare you to travel to other countries. But, if you're looking to learn about people from our history and to find the liberation within language, then you would want to come to liberationlanguage.com and study from here. Because as you get into it and continue to study through this comprehensible input approach, then you're going to find that as you're learning the language, you're also gaining these pieces of history and culture that you're not going to find in any other applications that are out there currently, unless someone is building one right now that are teaching you about language. And so, I'm just going to kind of scroll down here so you can see, what I mean. Some of the different, men and women that are, within these lessons, covering different languages. You can see, learning French through Thomas Sankara, Kiswahili with Julius and Nyerere, or Jomo Kenyatta, or Dr. Wangari Maathai. So I don't think I talked with you about this before, Brother Asar, but these are the types of educational resources that we're able to create in this new era. And so I want to encourage others to bring their ideas forth with the technology and, learn some basic coding at least, learn about APIs so that you can really make sure that the technology that you build is solid all the way through. When we talk about health and biological power, and we look at our data in our bodies, we can see that we have over 50 transitions, death in Black women versus 14.5 for white women per 100,000 live births in 2023. And, that is for a reason. A community that does not control its economic conditions cannot fully control its health outcomes. And I don't know if I've talked about this with you either. Now, we've also built maternal health technologies, which I'm not going to showcase here today because we're in a partnership with that now with the sister who's working with the city of New Orleans. So we're not totally ready to talk about that yet. But what I can show you is Afrogenomic, which is a genomic database that my son and I built based on African American health markers. Of course, we were able to access data sets with my research credentials so that we could build the database ourselves that includes our health markers to read our ancestry reports and then let us know what other information is there that may be relevant to us besides knowing our ancestry, which foods would work for us, how our body can move best, what our strengths are, what our challenges are. And you can access, this now at afrogenomic.com. So you can see here a video example, of a personalized genetic report. And you can see here one of those, personalized reports, being displayed, to show someone how to actually use what's showing up in their genetics to choose, the right foods, to know what to gravitate towards and what to avoid. This was kind of the first phase of it. The second phase of it, we went a lot more into detail. And so I loaded up a sample report here before our call, Jane Doe. Jane, what up, Doe? And we're able in this new iteration that we're getting ready to launch here in the next couple months, you're able to actually just upload your file because The way it is now, it takes about 3 days, because it goes through a human pass, where we actually, create your wellness report, like, and send it back to you, right? And it's like really long. It's like over 70 pages of material. But now with this new innovation, you can upload your raw DNA file. It will be deleted immediately after processing. And then it's going to create a report in about 2 minutes that is based on our African American health marker human genome database. Now, you have sites that are out there currently that, I'm not going to mention the names of them, not because they're trying to withhold them, but just because I don't want to say anything negative about them. They're very good sites, but you can upload your file from your, ancestry report, and they're very good sites. They're very comprehensive, but they do focus primarily on the genetics of white males. So that's one issue. The other issue is that if you're not someone who has, studied genetics or medicine, if you're not a scientist, it would be very difficult for you to understand what actually comes up when you upload your TXT file that you downloaded from Ancestry or 23andMe or MyHeritage. You're going to get a result that you're not going to understand 9 times out of 10 unless you've really, really studied that. So a part of what we've done is to actually explain the RSIDs that you see here. So you can see here like RS 8067378. What does that mean? That is referring to childhood asthma, right? But of course, if you just saw that, in a report, and if there was not, anything that was actually telling you, okay, this is what this is, then it would be difficult to understand. Let me know if I'm still connected well, Brother Asar.
You're good.
Okay. So we place our genetic strengths first because your DNA actually has gifts. And I found, that in our beta stage, when we've been, working with, the files of friends and family and so on, a lot of us have the longevity gene. Okay. This APOE, it helps to move cholesterol around your body, influences brain health as you age, depending on the type of APOE that you have. It can also be a longevity gene. It can even be something that increases the gray matter in your brain to where you're able to be more Imhotepian, right? So you might have that, Brother Asar, like if you're able to process like, parallel lines of information at the same time and whatnot, that can actually be something that is genetic. You may also have stress resilience. You may also have various markers that relate to endurance, metabolism, aging, cognitive function and focus, your immunity and your inflammation response. And then, of course, you also want to know the risk that, are there within your DNA as well, and which medications you may want to talk to your doctor about avoiding, if it flags as something that, you may have a sensitivity to, you may want to follow that up with a specific test around whether there is, an intolerance or allergy to that specific, medication, so that it's not something that is affecting you negatively. So since I've started offering these reports to my friends and family, all of them have benefited from it very directly and very quickly. in terms of recognizing some of the things that, they needed to talk to their doctor about, or some things that, they have needed to avoid because of what came up, within their DNA. Now, of course, when you do an ancestry report, it's not pulling up your full genome. It's only pulling up a small percentage of it. But within that small percentage of your genome, you're able to find information that has a very great effect on you. And it's important to decode that information because you already have it. You already have the file. You already have the file, but you don't have the other information that can come from that same file that relates to all of these domains within your internal ecosystem, right? And so this is a great example of what I mean by African-centered technology, right? Like, we don't have to go and try to recreate something that's already out there. You can create African-centered technology that deals with problems that relates to us and fills in gaps. And you don't have to become a millionaire from that. You can make, $30,000 a year from this and $30,000 a year from that. And then that will add up, for you to have plenty of money to do whatever you need to do. But, don't think about everything making you rich, right? Think about what is going to solve problems and outlast you. Because no matter how financially prosperous that you become, you in this body, you're not going to be here forever. And so create something that can outlast you. And that is a form of wealth that is even greater than financial wealth, of course. So, Dr. Wilson called for independent Black institutions. We have created, I'm not going to go into everything, but we have created Grant Skills Academy. I will quickly show no code solutions because it, branches from what we're talking about here today. Most of the time people are concerned about, if they build something with technology, how are they going to do it if they don't have a big technology background, and how are they going to monetize it? We have created a solution for that as well. So we have actually compiled over 200 well-researched solutions. This is more specific to the continent. So, how much that it costs and how much money it can bring in per month. Those things are specific, to the continent, at this time. But you can extrapolate from there to be able to also, apply some of the solutions in the US as well. Or just come out here and do something, We have a 7-bedroom house right now, fully furnished, that we live in, and it's $350 a month for the rent. So, let that be encouragement to you to maybe consider, stepping outside, if not for forever, maybe for 10 years, and just work remotely and build something beautiful. And then if you decide to come back to the States after that, you can come back to the States, on a different platform. And so you can see here that for the solutions portal that we've built, it actually includes your tech stack that you would use to build each one of the solutions, a copy and paste prompt, showing you how to build it, on different budgets, and, the estimated monthly revenue based on the number of users that you have. The build roadmap, is here, the problem deep dive, the solution breakdown, monetization models, examples, from real life, and projections, metrics, risk, competitive advantages. And you may say, well, I don't know what an API or freemium is. Like, oh, that's cool, but, how can I learn? We've included an academy here. Clearly I have too much time on my hands, brother. So know,
Obviously.
just using my time all the time.
Or you are actually from the future and this stuff was already, you just brought it back. Uh, Try to make it seem like you just did this in 2 months and you got a whole time machine over there
Not in
in
two
Rwanda.
months. Not in 2 months for sure. But we have built out the courses here. And my team and I have been doing like AWS certifications and things like that as well. So we decided to build an African-centered cloud training course platform here within No Code Solutions as well. We've utilized this with youth here on the continent. We recently, earlier this year, we trained 500 middle school girls, with this curriculum here on the continent. So, these are things that you can really use if you're doing like your AWS or Azure or Google Cloud platform certifications. You need to have a portfolio, right? But is your portfolio going to solve African problems or African diasporic problems? Or is your portfolio just going to be like a bunch of stuff like that everybody else is doing that's putting together a portfolio too? And so you can choose, any one of these projects, like, building a renewable energy monitor. And then when you get into that specific track,
Seems like you froze up again. Hopefully it catches you back. If you can hear me, you may have to come out and come back in again. Oh no, there you go.
I'm back. All right.
Yes.
So, yeah. So if you choose to do, for example, solar grid monitoring as a project that you're building with the knowledge that you've gained in learning about, Google Cloud, right? Now you need to build something for your portfolio. You could choose, here to build a lot of different projects, including like solar grid monitoring, wind farm analytics, mini grid billing systems, and so on. And so we actually walk you all the way through, the whole thing. So of course, if you're getting into, creating something with one of the cloud platforms, you're not coming in with absolutely, no knowledge whatsoever. But, you need something that's going to help you to be able to go through the whole process of creating these projects for your portfolio. And, we have created this part of the platform for you to be able to do that in an African-centered way. You can just think of me as like Miss African-centered everything. Everything needs to be African-centered. Clearly, everything needs to be African centered, but that's the approach that we need to take, like as a people, right? So I pray that everyone here is also thinking about, tools that you may be inspired to create to address problems within some of these domains that we have discussed. Look at the challenges that you see in front of you in your community, regionally, nationally, internationally, in the diaspora. Solve these problems, and in the process, you're going to build revenue. Every disparity is a market no one has served. We built a Kinyarwanda app, for people to actually learn Kinyarwanda that are transitioning and moving to Rwanda. And in my process of, beginning to learn Kinyarwanda, I was like, I wish I had an app for this. So we figured out how to make it. And my director of systems and operations for AGS is a Rwandan brother, and he went through and, checked everything really, really well. And, we created an app, where people are able to actually go through and learn the language, along with having, audio lessons included with that, again, from a comprehensible input approach, so that, you're taking in a little bit of information at a time until you gain fluency in the language. And that's something that can be done with many African languages, right?
Yeah.
I'm not going to show everything that we have created because it's a lot. We were featured on CNBC Africa earlier this year for Donor Bridge Africa at the Inclusive FinTech Forum. We've been building a lot. And some of the things that we've built are not even released to the public at all. Some of the things that we've built, we may never release to the public, and I'll show you a little bit of one of those things here. As I mentioned, I am a naturopathic, doctor in training. And you may know about, the study of the iris to be able to see different health issues. And so this is something that is not public, to anyone outside of my educational institution. I created this based on the teachings of Dr. Akua Gray, to be able to read, brown eyes and give a report. So I, created a computer vision app that can assess, what's going on in the iris and be able to help practitioners to see all of that information, very quickly within about 1 minute and correlate, to what it is that you're seeing with your naked eye, so that, you can make sure that you make the best recommendations to the client. Something I did here recently, kind of for fun, is to build a MetaNetter reader where you can scan an inscription and see and I talked to you about this, brother Sar, like as I was building it, right? So you really helped out with this. And this is not something that's public. This is just something I wanted to make for fun, but I'll release it at some point. And you can take a picture of an inscription and you can see both the translation and the transliteration. So, of course, not everybody is going to travel to Kemet, right away, right? So what I did was built in courses that, talk about MetaNetter and the process of learning it. And built into those courses, you actually have practice inscriptions. And brother, sorry, you can read MetaNetter, right?
It depends on what time period.
Okay, but you can kind of see what's here, like in this first picture, for example. So
like
I'm going to use my scanner here.
That's either Sir Nefer, we're at M. I'm sorry.
No, I was just saying you can see the scanner like moving up and down the blue line. Yeah. So those things are fun too. And then we can see the transliteration and the translation. This is something that, is still in development. So right now it's like focusing in on one part, and reading it instead of reading, everything that's there, right? Mm-hmm. But you can see that it is something that is possible to actually build something that can read MetaNetter. Again, that goes back to African-centered, development. We've even built, and this is not something that is public yet either, but we've built a 3D African-centered STEM museum as well, right? Where we've pulled in hundreds of artifacts from around the diaspora, and those artifacts appear within the interface, and you can switch between, different views and so on, in the interface, and having the Sankofa lens on or off, to be able to see like fun, like gamified, Easter eggs within the hall. But, of course, we're not going to travel to every museum in the world to see all of these artifacts, right? So if you want to explore, these topics that we say we created, like mathematics and astronomy and medicine, and how do we validate that? How do we show, like, our children, like, yeah, we did that, unless we're able to show the artifacts that correlate that. So these are, again, examples of things that you can build as well, right? So think about that. I'm going to kind of skim through, for time's sake, the rest of these slides, because it really is a lot of information, but you can come back. Go ahead, brother
We're
sir.
definitely going to have to bring you back, but we're going to
Yeah,
have to wrap up soon because I got this other interview uh, right behind this one. So I'm being interviewed in that one, and ironically, it's a it's a brother that created an app called Melanation. So it's the Melanation app. So I'm being interviewed for that. So
that
so
is awesome,
these
and
will have
that's great.
to.
Yeah, that's a great follow up. Like, you're having a whole technology day. And so you all can actually come back and review this, at a later time, as I'm just skimming through the slides here, because
And
there's
note
so
that
much
I'm gonna
information.
have the links. I'm gonna make sure that I put the links, or I try to make sure that I have all the links for the guests and what it is that they got
Yeah,
going on in their projects in the description. So if when y'all watch this live, make sure that you pay attention to the description, and I'll have the links to all of these things there. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
yes, yes, absolutely. And I show here on this slide, how you can get some of the credits, to help you with building, work on your prompting, make sure that you understand, some things about, code as well. Name one problem and then build towards a solution. Even if you have to get free startup credits, whatever you have to do to make it happen, make it happen, because it's important for the future of our people that we begin to create African centered technologies in this age of AI, right?
And it's ironic. If I could just share my screen real quick. Because in 2025, last year, I did a presentation titled "The Ancient Egyptian Origin of Artificial Intelligence." And so I go through
Mm.
the process of defining what artificial intelligence is, what it what are the processes, some text to study, definitions in terms of learning about computational agents and the like. And I was supposed to do a follow up uh, for West Africa and on Odu Ifa as artificial intelligence, sacred computational agents within the Yoruba Isheshe Kimoyo tradition, right? So
Literally, like the 64, the 256.
exactly.
Yeah.
And but I'm definitely going to have to bring you back on our series um, dealing with. So this was from 2023. Well, that's when I introduced this concept I have called Qigong, and Qigong being a modern pronunciation of what is Kemet. Um, and I go through that, but it is an Afrocentric agricultural philosophy, paradigm, and praxis. And so I'm going to be interviewing a series of scholars and agriculturalists and the like, and philosophers, and putting this thing together as a paradigm, philosophy and praxis, saying for the people to live by, right? And so since you deal with the agricultural stuff, definitely going to have you come back. Um, within the Chicom series of interviews. So I'll have a whole new introduction just for Chicom on the website. I mean on the Mbongi uh, YouTube channel. And but yeah, so like we deep into this stuff, and so I'm not surprised at all to see all that you have done and are doing, and probably after you take your next trip back to the future and come back. I mean, technically, you're in the future since you about what 6 hours ahead of us. So she's literally in the future, speaking to us mere mortals on the East Coast
Oh my
of the United
goodness.
States. But I do appreciate your time and all that you've shared. In terms of, again, I'm gonna have the more extended list of her websites that you can visit and take advantage of. But the main ones I'll name right now is the wholelivingacademy.com, uh, dealing with the
Yes.
online schooling and the like. And to know more about her specifically, and I'm pretty sure that she'll have a links page or something to that nature where you get to see all the other stuff. But AsanteGlobalSolutions.org, and so those are the two websites, wholelivingacademy.com and AsanteGlobalSolutions.org. But those extended ones I'll definitely have in the description below. So
Yes.
before we go, is there anything that you want to say? I'll let you have the last word.
Yes, I would say that, for anyone who is considering homeschooling your children or would like to give them a virtual learning experience, yes, please visit wholelivingacademy.com. We provide K through 12 learning, to contribute to whole child development. So just like, what you saw here today, I've been, really blessed, really fortunate to see that same type of development within our students as they're growing, and see like our students becoming, like, we have one, for example, who's like a top athlete, and he's a top artist, and he's playing the piano at a high level, and so on and so forth, right? So if you want your students, your children to be Imhotepian, then you can bring them our way to Whole Living Academy. And other than that, just find those problems and create solutions. Don't wait for the solutions to be created, or say like, man, I had an idea back in '98, and then somebody else did it. Every time I think of something, somebody do it. That may be the collective consciousness, right? So you need to go ahead and act on the things that are coming to you. Bring them into the world to the best of your ability. And that can also be something to empower you financially. Take the wealth that's in your mind and bring it into your bank account. And in the process, you can make a positive impact on the African diaspora.
Ashe. Well, thank you all for listening. Thank you, Sister Nikala, for sharing your wisdom with us. And we'll be back sometime soon. Just stick around for a little bit. And for y'all have a good day. Talk to y'all later. Peace.